Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode. So again, just like to make sure the body is supported. So if you are sitting down, perhaps you can just check in with the body and adjust if you need to, as well as I'm doing now, just ensuring my back is supported against the chair. And it's almost a letting go, even in the position of your body, just whether you're sitting on the ground, standing, trusting in the solidity, the support of the ground as you walk. And as I sit in a chair, it's almost, may sound a bit strange, but just trusting in the in the support of the chair, allowing the body to relax. Sometimes it can be ever so subtle when the body is gripping, it's tensing and holding. Maybe there's some more space to relax. There's something else you can let go and relieve some tension. So I was questioning myself whether to talk about this or not, but I think it may be a good teaching experience for myself and for anyone who's listening as well, just of how life is a great teacher and a great practice as well. If we were to share with somebody that, I'm on a spiritual path, or I meditate, or I'm present, then maybe they'll have it in their mind that, maybe he sits and meditates for several hours each day. Or maybe she has a strict process and routine of concentration and effort of trying to be spiritual. But it's just simply a way of being. It's almost the fabric of life. It's not a practice in the sense of 10 minutes here or 5 minutes there. That can be done, but it's the totality of it. It's not you being spiritual for 5 minutes, or you meditating for 10 minutes and then returning back to normal life, but that's why it's referred to as an awakening. You're fully, most of our lives perhaps we were asleep in thought, asleep in the constant stream of realities created by the mind. And now we've woken up to it. So yesterday I was in bed, and as I turned in my sleep, or maybe I was semi-awake, I felt a bit of pain in my chest, and soon after I woke up, I the pain was a bit there, and I felt where it was, and it was in my breast, and I immediately felt what I thought was either a bite or a lump. And on closer inspection, it seemed more like a lump, because it was hard underneath the skin, instead of a bite where usually there's, it protrudes from the skin. The bite usually it's on the surface, but so I thought I was still unsure, and so I made an appointment with the doctor, who took a look and confirmed it is a lump. And actually, before I made the appointment, I remember being very calm and thinking, okay, what can be done in this case? And I remembered we have the NHS website here in the UK, which is just almost like a database of symptoms and explanations, medical explanations. So I did a quick search and read a useful article about, lumps found in the breast of men, and it mentioned, most of the time it's benign, it's not a serious thing, it happens rarely, and it's rarely serious. So, I took action in that moment. There was no thought of, there's no worry, or there was no conjecture, and again with the doctor confirmed, I was, and it was a lump, and so now I'm in a bit of a waiting stage. So we agreed to wait at least a week or two to see if there's any changes. If, for example, if it disappears, then we know it's not anything cancerous or anything serious. And if it doesn't, then we can move on to scans and biopsies. But in this moment, there is only the now. And if I choose to, I can perhaps generate thoughts about this of, okay, what about if it is serious? What do I do? And I've largely not even generated those thoughts, just remained in the now. Those thoughts are not important in this moment. It seems like everything that's needed to be done has been done. And then when that time period comes up in a week, then maybe some more action would be needed then. But in this week, I'm not waiting for anything. I'm not hoping that this disappears, or it will just run its course. It's, in a funny way, it's almost none of my business in a really strange way, because life is now, is here, and this is again overlooked by the mind, whether there's something serious happening or something not so serious happening. In a sense, they're the same. It's, everything's happening, all of the changing and things developing and happening and coming and going and being created and destroyed. It's all happening in the unchanging. So that's why I mean by everything's almost the same. Whether this is serious or not, it's all happening in the unchanging. Action is being taken that is needed, but if I was to worry about this, then for me that largely be quite useless to worry about it. Perhaps, if something down the line happens where maybe I could take out, a period of time to research or do something, if that comes to that point or that needs to be done, then that will happen then. But now life is happening. And only now can be experienced, the aliveness, the awareness of now. And it's so much more pleasant than the stream of thoughts, especially around this particular issue. I can almost feel sometimes the thoughts creep in, and then I become aware, okay, yes. And it's not rejecting them or trying to push them down, it's the mind reacting, how it, at times, sometimes my mind will jump to the future and ask me the question, what about it if it's bad? All about if it's some treatment is required. And then I can almost just watch that question and allow it to dissolve. I can understand in this moment there's no benefit there for me trying to go down this road. So this is a more of an extreme example of life being almost a teacher when a challenge arises. It could be a difficult interaction with somebody. This is what can wake us up, what can help us refocus and remind us of our true nature. So perhaps we can just take a few moments of stillness. And again, as we read in the Miracle of Mindfulness, I've managed to remember the title today. We can just be aware of the position of our bodies, something that it mentioned, just to be aware of how the body is positioned, whether you're sat down or you're standing or walking, and this is almost the anchor to remain in the now. And an anchor can be extremely useful, especially as we go on this journey where we experience the flux of being in presence, and then suddenly you're in thought, and you'll catch yourself in thought and think, how long have I been in thought? And then you may want to step back to being in presence, but sometimes an anchor can be useful when perhaps you may be going into a situation that may provoke unconsciousness. So the anchor of the body, of the inner energy stream as well. Perhaps we can just touch base with that. recently watched the podcast between Russell Brand and Eckhart. Yes, it was largely Eckhart talking and Russell listening. And there was a very useful reminder about almost the art of living in this path, but the having one foot in beingness and one foot in doing. And it's almost the art of balancing that, balancing the being and doing. And for some of us, we may need to do more being than doing, usually because doing comes so natural. Most of us have probably come from, the complete being consumed by doing, and so there's the art of inviting the beingness into the doing, and how we would always have a foot in each, as obviously we have the human form, and we have, as part of living our life, that some doing is required. But perhaps some doing can also be reduced as well. Maybe there's not many people that are not doing enough doing. Maybe there's too many of us who are exceeding our quota of what's needed to be done. So that's something we can almost take into our day. We can maybe look to the day ahead, or if it's at the end of your day, we can look at tomorrow and think, perhaps you can, carry that into your day, the being into the doing. And this could be moments where, you're driving, taking your commute to work, or an interaction with somebody. You can bring some beingness to it. You can anchor into your inner body as you listen, as an anchor as you respond as well, so you're not in reaction. There's a spaciousness around the conversation that may be triggering, that may bring up a lot of pain or stress. Or it could be, eating your lunch, either at home or work. There could be some beingness in that, something that usually it's all about the doing. I do this very often. You lose consciousness when we eat. We often enjoy the food, or we're chewing and swallowing, and we've already got the next spoonful ready, as we said in the book last week. About mindful eating, about the movement of gathering the food, picking up the food, or bringing it to your mouth and a spoon, or tasting, chewing, swallowing, feeling the sensations, and if another spoonful is required, or another mouthful, then each moment is seen, and you're almost in a flow of that. So perhaps it's a good time to pick up where we left off in the Miracle of Mindfulness. So this is the start of chapter 2. So we covered several passages of chapter 1, of some examples and some almost, and if you'd call them anecdotes or just short passages of stories that carried the lessons of mindfulness in them. So chapter 2, and the title of this first passage is "The Miracle is to Walk on Earth." Alan said that since he's begun to consider Joey's and Sue's time as his own, he has unlimited time. Because there are doubtless times when Alan forgets to consider Joey's time as his own time while going over Joey's homework with him, and thus Alan may lose that time. Alan might hope for the time to pass quickly, or he may grow impatient because that time seems wasted to him because it isn't his own time. And so, if he really wants unlimited time, he will have to keep alive the realization that this is my time throughout the time he's studying with Joey. But during such times, one's mind is inevitably distracted by other thoughts, and so if one really wants to keep one's consciousness alive, from now on, I'll use the term mindfulness to refer to keeping one's consciousness alive to the present reality, then one must practice right now in one's daily life, not only during meditation sessions. When you are walking along a path leading into a village, you can practice mindfulness. Walking along a dirt path surrounded by patches of green grass, if you practice mindfulness, you will experience that path, the path leading into the village. You practice by keeping this one thought alive. I'm walking along the path leading into the village. Whether it's sunny or rainy, whether the path is dry or wet, you keep that one thought, but not just repeating it like a machine over and over again. Machine thinking is the opposite of mindfulness. If we're really engaged in mindfulness while walking along the path to the village, then we will consider the act of each step we take as an infinite wonder, and a joy will open our hearts like a flower, enabling us to enter the world of reality. I like to walk alone on country paths, rice plants and wild grasses on both sides, putting each foot down on the earth in mindfulness, knowing that I walk on the wondrous earth. In such moments, existence is a miraculous and mysterious reality. People usually consider walking on water or in thin air a miracle, but I think the real miracle is not to walk either on water or in thin air, but to walk on earth. Every day we are engaged in a miracle which we don't even recognize. A blue sky, white clouds, green leaves, the black, curious eyes of a child, our own two eyes. All is a miracle. So that was the passage about the miracle is to walk on earth. And again, just to highlight what is being said here about machine thinking, where almost the pointer we've used is turned into almost a concept for the mind to repeat over and over, instead of each action, each footstep is its own beginning and end. So we're not doing it to reach the destination to the village, but the actual journey itself is within each footstep. And you can almost imagine that process, because most of our lives I have walked, not in this space. I've walked to get to a destination. I've walked in a hurry where my legs are extremely tense, wanting to get there, and then feeling the pain in my calves. I can even, during those times you could feel even the hardening of the muscles as they were so tense to get to that destination. There was no consciousness at all in any of the footsteps. It was all, one footstep to get to the next, and to get to the next street, and checking the time. And it was almost the opposite of what's being said here, where each footstep is a wonder. Each footstep is its own totality, its own entirety. So the next passage is called Sitting. Zen Master Doc D says that when sitting in meditation, one should sit upright, giving birth to this thought. Sitting here is like on the Bodhi spot. The Bodhi spot is where Lord Buddha sat when he obtained enlightenment. If any person can become a Buddha, and the Buddhas are all those countless persons who have obtained enlightenment, then many have sat on the very spot I sit on now. Sitting on the same spot as a Buddha gives rise to happiness, and sitting in mindfulness means itself to have become a Buddha. The poet Nyan Kong Tru experienced the same thing when he sat down on a certain spot and suddenly saw how others had sat on the same spot countless ages ago, and how in ages to come others would also come to sit there. On the same spot I sit today, others came in ages past to sit. 1,000 years, still others will come. Who is the singer and who the listener? That spot and the minutes he spent there became a link in eternal reality. But active, concerned people don't have time to spend leisurely walking along paths of green grass and sitting beneath trees. One must prepare projects, consult with the neighbours, try to resolve 1,000,000 difficulties. There is hard work to do. One must deal with every kind of hardship, every moment keeping one's attention focused on the work, alert, ready to handle the situation ably and intelligently. You might well ask, then how are we to practice mindfulness? My answer is, keep your attention focused on the work. Be alert and ready to handle ably and intelligently any situation which may arise. This is mindfulness. There is no reason why mindfulness should be different from focusing all one's attention on one's work, to be alert and to be using one's best judgment. During the moment one is consulting, resolving and dealing with whatever arises, a calm heart and self-control are necessary if one is to obtain good results. Anyone can see that if we are not in control of ourselves, but instead let our impatience or anger interfere, then our work is no longer of any value. Mindfulness is the miracle by which we master and restore ourselves. Consider, for example, a magician who cuts his body into many parts and places each part in a different region: hands in the south, arms in the east, legs in the north, and then by some miraculous power lets forth a cry which resembles whole every part of his body. Mindfulness is like that. It is the miracle which can call back in a flash our dispersed mind and restore it to wholeness so that we can live each minute of life. So what comes to mind here is a similar example of when we were washing the dishes. There's almost a single immersion in the task at hand. And in this example, it's about a very relatable example of, perhaps in a busy workplace. There's projects, there's hard work to do, there's things that need to be resolved. But just like the footsteps leading to the village, the path leading to the village, this example is showing its own path where each task is given your full attention, your full immersion. But with the awareness of your immersion, you're not lost in the task. You're fully immersed in the task, in the awareness of doing. And it's saying here that with that single-mindedness focus, with that alertness, you'll be able to handle things ably and intelligently. If, for example, there isn't that immersion, maybe there is some anger there, it's talked about here, or impatience, this can interfere with the quality of work that's done, the quality of your attention on this task. If it's tainted or mixed in with anger, then it says here that our work is no longer of any value. And it's easy to see that because anger comes from a very unstable place. Things are done by impulse or there's a reaction, often later regretted. Or if there's impatience, then again there's a loss of that connection to the total intelligence in the now. Now you are, you switch to the very narrow frequency of the mind, and the mind's impatiently trying to get something done, but by doing this task in single-mindedness, in a mindful, imbued manner, the totality is almost a holistic practice. Everything is considered. So when something comes up, you're operating on full intelligence, full capacity. And again, just to repeat one of the lines, and in my Kindle it's highlighted here as well. Readers are able to highlight, and this shares the popular passages that have been highlighted by many other readers, and it's this one here, which I will read again. Mindfulness is the miracle by which we master and restore ourselves. And perhaps that's good place to leave at the end of that passage. So, how can we master ourselves? And this isn't something to achieve or something that someday we'll get to. It's talking about the mastering is there, it's available. And it's another way perhaps is mastering this moment. These are different pointers than we've come across in Eckhart's book. Another way to say it in what we've come across previously is, can I fully accept this moment? Suddenly a problem has arisen, or a challenge has arisen in the workplace, or in the family situation, or in your personal life. Can I accept and fully embrace this? Give it my full awareness without the loss of your consciousness, without the loss of that stillness that you are. And can I act from this place where you'll be able to access your full intelligence? Okay, thank you for joining me for today's episode, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Take care.